And good afternoon. My name is Ryan Belmore. I am the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop, and we are kicking off our 2024 election coverage today and over the next several weeks, I guess a couple months. We'll be chatting with candidates for local and statewide offices. We're kicking it off in Newport's first ward, Newport City Council first ward, because there is a primary. And if you are not aware, early voting for the primary all across the state, as well as in Newport, began last Wednesday, August 21st. The primary is on September 10th. Of course, the general election is coming up on November 5th, but we're narrowing down some races across the state, as well as here in Newport, ahead of the general election. So we are starting with Newport's first ward. 3 candidates are vying to represent Newport's first ward. And the seat will see new representation, as incumbent Angela Lima is not seeking re-election. We'll chat with all 3 candidates for the race, 1 today and 2 tomorrow. And we get things started here today with Hugo DeAscentis. And Hugo, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing all right. And we already got down to it. You didn't see the planes. I didn't see the planes.
No.
The Italian army, unfortunately. So was flying over Newport just a short while ago. Hopefully somebody saw it. Hugo, why don't we just get started with not your first, you ran previously for this seat. Why don't you get started with just a little background and what you want people to know about you?
So I'll give you my background. I was a Newport resident, longtime Newport resident, born and raised in Newport, attended Newport public schools, K-12. I graduated Rogers High School 72, went over to the University of Rhode Island 76. I consider myself to have a career in the sciences, but more specifically, I work for public water supply, testing and analyzing public drinking water. I worked for Newport Water, and then I was a supervisor of water plant operations for Providence Water. And currently, I kind of work a little part-time. I'm not really into a 9-to-5 job if I can help it, but if it happens that I have to go back and work 9 to 5, that's fine. I'm a Rhode Island level 2, what they call level 2 drinking water system assessor. On occasion, I'll go out if there's a troublesome problem, particularly a coliform bacteria outbreak. I can assess. I'm certified to assess systems. I'm also instructor at CCRI and workforce partnerships in trying to get the pass rate up for drinking water operator exams. In order to be a drinking water operator in the state of Rhode Island, you have to pass an exam. And we're just trying to get the pass rates up, get more people to pass the test, get into the system, because there's a shortage of drinking water operators. I previously served in the Newport School Committee for 13 years. I ended that in 2010. Married with my wife Sheila. We raised 3 sons in the city of Newport. They all went to Newport Public Schools. I was actively involved in the community. I was the president of the Coxhill Elementary PTO, former Little League team manager, People's Credit Union. Had a lot of fun actually doing that. It took a lot of time, but it was a lot of fun when the kids were in Little League. Former parent volunteer, Newport Recreation Department soccer. Used to help the kids, coach soccer. Member of St. Joseph's Church in the city of Newport. That's probably my brief overall background. We can get into more specifics, but I can talk about the 13 years I was on the school committee, but we go on and on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say you already served 13 years, and thank you for your service on the Newport School Committee. What makes you, having gone through a baker's dozen of years on school committee, what makes you want to get back into the political life, into governance, and what makes you want to run for the seat?
So that's a good question. So it is a lot of work, and I know this because I was on the school committee, and there's a lot of preparation to properly do it. There's a lot of preparation before any meeting that you go to. You're going to get dockets, and at least on the school side, there was tons of information that came along with a weekly packet. So there's a lot in preparation, and there's a lot of kind of legwork that you have to do. You have to kind of run around and double check on the issues and whatnot. In the school department, sometimes I'd go to the actual sites and kind of visit the sites if there was something going on in a particular location, building, elementary, middle, high school building. And I expect the city is going to be the same. A couple of triggers. Someone said, "Oh, what are your triggers?" Well, for me, a couple of triggers were the Eastern Beach buildings need to be replaced, and that kind of. I was kind of a little disturbed about that because I remember Hurricane Bob came in and just wiped it out. and it was rebuilt, and it was rebuilt very nicely, and it was up on stilts. And I know now we can take a fairly large hit with a wave, and the place won't go to splinters and whatnot. And I figured that would last for many, many years. And now we're saying, oh no, it needs to be rebuilt. So I think there was a lack of maintenance going on there, and that kind of got me a little bit. I kind of like Easton's Beach. It's a natural piece that Newport has, and we should really, maintain what we have there and promote it and really get public use. And this summer, I think, we didn't have full use of that because it's kind of in between construction. The other one is the Rogers High School. And I was very disappointed to see the auditorium come down. When I was on the school committee, we did a lot of work. And what we did is we actually did a lot of work in just the auditorium. I don't mean the whole building. We did the whole building as well. We put in these window walls, but just the auditorium, we figured out how to reupholster all the seats. We took all this, what they call vinyl composition tile around the auditorium that had asbestos. That was all removed. We did all carpeting. We did the whole thing. The only thing I think maybe we didn't do was a stage. I think there needed to be some woodworking done on that. But that building came down, and I said, gee, that was a good building. And from the guys that I talked to on there, I think it had some problems getting it up and running. But I was told there was even an AC system in that. It's a different kind of an AC system. It doesn't run off of Freon. But anyway, the point of the matter is I thought that was the only meeting space that I know that city owned that we can meet in as an auditorium. I mean, a lot of times we'd have our, inaugurations there. City Council and Newport School Committee would be where? Rogers High School. I don't think we have that anymore. Well, we don't with Rogers. That's gone. The auditorium's gone. The other thing, consider this, is that most every new school building that's built nowadays doesn't have an auditorium. It doesn't have a nice dedicated auditorium. It has a cafetorium. And that's a combination of a cafeteria and auditorium. And it's not ideal for an auditorium. So it was kind of not good to see that, go. So those are my two, I'll call them trigger issues. And the other thing I'll mention is, I did serve 13 years on the school committee. It kind of gets in your blood a little bit. You kind of get involved with the community, and I haven't been involved in a few years, and I kind of want to get back into it again. As crazy as that might sound, but it's something I enjoyed. It's a lot of time and a lot of work, but I do enjoy it.
I'm going to go back to number one, because I think you might have a unique perspective here in regards to Easton's Beach. In the buildings coming down and climate change, there is a water supply right across the way. And
there is.
I'm wondering, what your take is with everything there. With, there's conversations about, you have to do all this to preserve the water supply. Just wondering, you're a little bit further on the Easton's Beach.
Yeah, so that actually I can answer that in some detail. I was working for the water department at the time, and one of the things I did, I don't know if you remember Hurricane Bob. What that did is that came early in the season. So most hurricanes will come in September, and in September we're kind of into fall. And when the fall comes, the leaves get stripped off the trees in a hurricane. In August, when Bob hit, the leaves were on the trees and they didn't get stripped off. They weren't ready to fall, and a lot of trees came down. And it took at least a day or so before Newport roads were even passable. There were so many trees blocking the passage. Anyway, I was working in the lab, and I decided to go over and try to assess the damage, because we have drinking water lines over there, and we have to find out, hey, are these things compromised in any way? So I finally went over there with another fellow, lab intern, nice guy. And anyway, we went over, the two of us, and we actually couldn't get into Easton's Beach. It was destroyed. It was really a shambles. And what we did do is we noticed, coincidentally, I'll say this too, there are two ponds that you draw off of for public water. Easton Pond is actually two sections. It's actually 7 ponds on the island, 2 ponds off island, but we'll just concentrate on Easton Pond. There are 2 ponds, 2 sections, the north and the south pond. Coincidentally, when that storm hit, we were at August low levels on the south pond. The south pond is the one right up against the beach. It's only separated by Memorial Boulevard. We were off of that. We happened to come off of that and went out to north section. So we weren't drawing from that pond. When I went around to the beach to check it all out, what I found was there was a big tidal surge that came in, and on the banks of the pond, if you can imagine this, on the banks of the pond, on the I'll call it the Memorial Boulevard side. The other side has the riprap and the actual reservoir of the water, and on the banks were just suntan lotion bottles and paint cans and all this debris that were in the bathhouses, that all this debris came over and across Memorial Boulevard. I'm assuming it came over in a storm surge, and it was washed right up against the banks of the pond. And I said, "Oh, this is not good. We need, obviously." So we cleaned all that up. That wasn't a major problem, and it didn't affect the water supply, luckily. And it took a long time, actually, for South Pond, as it does every year, to kind of regenerate and recover and recharge. So it didn't affect the water supply in that particular storm. But I got thinking, gee, this is a problem. And what happened? There was so much damage on Eastern Beach, it was rebuilt. We all know it was rebuilt. And they did a good job. They did it right. They put it up on stilts. If you remember, the parking is underneath. The buildings are up on stilts. They said, that's great. And if we have another hit, we'll be good, and it won't impact the drinking water supply or anything like that. And then I look over there this summer, and it's shut down. It's decaying. It hasn't been maintained. So I just thought that was a great project, and I expected it would last for many, many years, and it just didn't. As far as climate change goes, I think climate change, I'm not sure it's the sea level rise so much that's going to hit us. I don't think the sea level is necessarily going to rise, and the pond is very low. So let's not mistake that the sea level and the pond level are very close. But I think what we're getting is more storms, more moisture in the atmosphere, more storms, and more of these potential hurricanes that will bring a storm surge over. So it's not that we're going to someday see saltwater infiltration into the pond. More likely, that may happen someday, but more likely we're going to get storm surges, more frequent storm surges like Hurricane Bob. So I'm a little guarded against that. But my feeling was that the design was good, and we weren't going to get any more of that debris, all the suntan lotions and all the beach paraphernalia that came out of the bathhouses. I don't think that would happen again after it was all rebuilt. So I was kind of proud of the project, because this is great, but it's falling apart. So that was kind of a trigger for me, something I didn't want to see.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, obviously, if you were to get on council, you'd be one of 7 votes, that could decide what happens down there. Do you think it's possible to rebuild the infrastructure and the recreational facilities at Easton Beach while also protecting the public water across the street?
Oh, absolutely. I no question about it. That's a matter of engineering, number one. And the original rebuild after Hurricane Bob was very good. There's nothing really wrong with it. The problem was the maintenance, and it should not have become. Shouldn't be coming down now. The other thing is, I was on the beach early in the season, and I looked up and down the beach, and I noticed, and this is across all the bathhouses are closed down. They did have the the restrooms, and I think some of the showers were open, but all the bathhouses were closed down. But I'm looking up and down the beach and saying, this is a natural resource that Newport has that most communities don't even come close to. That's a great beach. The only other problem, of course, everybody knows, there's a lot of seaweed, and the issue for that is mechanical removal, but not to talk about that at this time. That's a natural resource that we have, and I think that's something that we should develop, and we should really maximize the public use. That's an excellent facility that we have. So yes, rebuild the beach, do it up once, do it right. That's my saying: do it once, do it right, be done with it, move on to something else. I thought that happened in Hurricane Bob, and here we are. It just didn't happen. It needs to be totally rebuilt, and that's a shame.
With your 2 triggers of the Easton Beach as well as Rogers High School Auditorium, you've mentioned the word maintenance many times, and maintenance costs money. Have we not funded the maintenance of these properties and these buildings enough? And also, how do you think, if we rebuild this, that we generate enough revenue to make sure these are maintained moving forward?
Yes, that is absolutely the key. That's the whole crux of this problem. I think what happens is we've got another almost $100 million bond that's going to go before the public for the November election ballot. And if you look at it, it's got some numbers in there, but they're loose. They just go, well, we're going to do this. Maybe we'll take $10 million here, and we'll take care of an old dump on Harrison. Oh, no, but maybe we'll take that and use it for Rogers. I mean, the numbers are just too loose. What we really need is a dedicated document for each building in the city, and maybe each asset as well, but each building, I'll just talk in terms of buildings. We need a dedicated document that explains from the get-go. And if it's a new building being built, we need to know the cost of the construction. Obviously, we want to know that. We like to get hard numbers that stay and that don't keep moving around. And we've got more an increase. So we thought it was going to be 90 million. Now it's 100 million. Now it's 110 million. We don't need that. We need some nice precise figures. But here's the thing: put together a document that explains to the public the cost, the initial cost, the operation and maintenance costs over the course of time, and the long-term building costs. If there's a building that's going to need a roof in 20 years, we need to lay that out in a document dedicated to the building, not a capital improvement plan that applies to all the buildings across the city, but a building by building document, and start putting that money away. If you think that it needs a new building, new roof, or whatever it might need in 20 years, stop putting some money into that building, into a budget with strings attached, that money is to be spent only in that building. I think what happened, I'm not sure with Rogers High School, we did a renovation, almost $4 million back in the 90s, window walls, and I'm not sure why that didn't hold, but at least on the beach, we should have had some maintenance. And if it's not maintained, if we had that document would have said something similar to, okay, it needs to be every 5 or 10 years, we need to repaint it. Well, repaint it. That's the cost of maintenance. Put money in there and do the maintenance. Don't, rob Peter to pay Paul. Don't take money off of that project and put it in some other project. And then, surprise, oh, the building's falling apart. That should have never happened. It really is just better planning and better documentation.
Hugo, I hear sitting in on city council meetings, that even with this $98 million bonds that's going to go in front of vote, is going to go in front of voters in November. That's not a drop in the bucket, but there's still a lot more infrastructure projects to fund. Obviously, we can't keep doing bond items. Any ideas on how we generate more revenue to have more money in the piggy bank to pay for these things?
Well, of course, my approach is to maintain what you've got. If you do a good job maintaining what you've got, you're not going to be hit with a $98 million. I think Laura Citron, a former city finance director, she had said that there's something on the order of $500 million worth of projects that really need to be addressed at some point in the future. And this is just maybe 1/5 of that. Let's maintain what we have. If you maintain it, maybe we don't have to build a new Rogers High School. Maybe we don't have to rebuild the beach. Maybe we don't have to, we've got Clip Walk is in need of some safety concerns there. So building maintenance is a big deal. Let's put that into play. As far as generating revenue, you're right. Think about this: $100 million project, and if we add another $100 million for the high school, I mean, $100 million worked out over, we're a population of about 25,000 people. You work that out, and that's about $4,000 per person. That's a lot of money. We're a city of 20. That's our scale. We're a city of 25,000 people. We just can't keep going out and asking the taxpayers for more money. Take care of what we've got. That's all I can say in that. As far as raising revenue, we've got taxes. Well, maybe if we've got great representation, we can go to our state and our federal officials and ask for maybe some money, some matching grants, whatever it might be. But we're not it's not an unlimited supply of money. We've got to be careful on our budgets.
Speaking of other issues, I'm just wondering, do you see that there are any unique issues or needs for the First Ward?
The First Ward right now, we've got traffic coming off the bridge. There's the new kind of rerouting the traffic coming off the bridge. There's a couple of issues that seem to keep coming up. One is, what are you going to do with the land that's reclaimed? When you reformulated the bridge roads over there. And the other one is the flooding. Flooding seems to be coming up quite a bit too. So those are two issues that we're going to have to look at. There's going to be some pressure on the real estate. Real estate is real estate, but certainly one of the things I'd like to see is, I think Newport, one of its biggest assets is it's small, it's manageable. It was laid out in colonial times, and it's walkable. We have sidewalks. And a lot of people like to walk for recreation. Just maybe they walk to point A to point B just to get around. That's something that we should incorporate into all traffic studies and all traffic plans. Exactly how that land is going to end up over there. We've got the highlight property. We've got property from the, reformulating the bridge roads. And there's a city yard. There's 10 acres of a city yard over there. Exactly how that's all going to end up, I don't know. There's going to be some business, some commercial interests as well, but I like the idea of parks. I like the idea of remaining, it needs to be a walkable area. We need to be able to, as a pedestrian, I should be able to walk through that area without having any major traffic issues. That's going to conflict with pedestrians and bicyclists. The other issue is and this is I guess, a first ward issue. The flooding issue. The flooding issue is it's doable. It's something that could be engineered out. That's not a major problem. It does need to be paid for. You need to get the permitting, but that's something I think that can be solved, and it's just a matter of getting the right project up and running, and then kind of pushing it to the end and solving that issue. But that's an issue that should have been solved a long time ago.
Any thoughts on putting any kind of pressure, or how do we get the Newport Grand property to move on? I know that is a private business.
It is now.
Let me.
It is not. But at one point, the city had the option that they had the first shot at buying that property, and maybe we should have bought that property. I don't know what the cost would have been, but we're talking about, putting out millions of dollars to build a high school, millions of dollars for various other projects around the city. So maybe that's moot now. Maybe there's no way the city can get that property. But I think what we need to do is we need to look at however that property is developed. Again, maybe there's an element of open space that we can incorporate into that. Maybe there's an element of, again, I don't know the proper term, but I'm just trying to say that Newport, you should be able to navigate the streets in the city of Newport, whether you're on foot or on a bicycle or in a car. You should hit a traffic jam. You shouldn't be blocked by very busy roads if you're on a bicycle or a pedestrian. So maybe when that property is developed, we can kind of incorporate those ideas and philosophies into that. Will we have absolute control? No, we don't own it. If we owned it, we have absolute control, but we didn't buy it. So,
what else are you hearing from First Ward voters and out there?
Particularly from First Ward voters, I think they're looking for. I think what they're looking for is good, solid representation. I think that. Everybody, I don't like this idea that sometimes we look at the city and we say, well, that's one part of the city, that's another part of the city, but we're all together. If we solve the problems in the traffic for the First Ward, which will be great for the people who live in the First Ward, but it's also good for anybody traveling through the First Ward, whether the Second Ward or the Third Ward. So I think we need to approach the city is representing the whole city. One of the things I'm telling people is if I'm an elected official and I'm a First Ward councilman, I represent the whole city. Every issue that comes before the city council as a First Ward representative, I'm going to vote on. So I need to look out for the interests of the entire city. Now, within that, I have to look at very closely with a little bit more energy and enthusiasm, I suppose. I have to look at the special, circumstances for First Ward. Whoever's living in the First Ward, we have some issues that need to be resolved. But I represent the full city, and then I represent the entire First Ward as well. So it's this idea that you can't just kind of look at one small area of the city and say, this is all I do. You do everything. And so if I'm on the council, you have to be involved in everything. Just more global involvement.
I'll ask this in maybe two different ways, and we'll see how it comes out because it's just coming off my tongue. What do you think the biggest opportunity City Council has, or what do you think? What opportunities or things do you think that they could be doing better?
Building maintenance. I mentioned that clearly. I mean, to me, it's almost a no-brainer. If you've got a home, you maintain it, and I just don't think that they've done a very good job maintaining what they've got. The other thing I'm thinking about, and I don't know because I'm not in not in City Hall, although I would be if I'm an elected official. I'd like to see the organizational chart. I think Newport is a small, manageable city. One of the chief nice things about Newport, one of its chief nice character, it's a city. It is a city, but it's small and it's manageable. And I think we're getting in too many layers of bureaucracy in terms of the administration and management within the city. I think it's small, it's manageable. You need a police chief, you're good. You need a fire chief, you're good. And you need somebody to look after utilities, you're good. On the school side, you got a school superintendent, and that's it. I don't think you need layers and layers and layers of personnel and department heads and sub-department heads and whatnot. So I'm not sure the city is running maybe as efficiently as it should be. So maybe there's an efficiency issue there. And again, the buildings, I'm always big on building maintenance.
You know, on that, I remember I brought this up last election, because we were going through, people were going through the charter, and there was a charter review commission. So it was a question that was coming up a lot during the last election season. But, you know, well, let's talk about the charter commission for a minute. I'm not sure how much you studied it back when, but do you support any changes? For example, I'm not sure if it was on there, but one, you know, should we have an elected mayor? Should we have a full-time mayor? Should we, you know, when you're talking about changing, do you change it there as well?
Good questions. Let me just say this. I do like the idea of ward council. I don't like, you know, I know there's some talk about, oh, we'll just do away with all the ward council, just have city council in general. So everybody runs at large. I kind of like the idea of ward council, because I think if you live in an area and someone calls you up, and necessarily if we have ward councilman, there will be someone in your geographical location in the city council. Someone calls you up and said, hey, we've got problems with traffic. I just throw one out. Traffic on Summer Street. They got parking on both sides. We can't get through. Now that affects everybody across the city. But if you live in the second or first ward, and someone in the first ward calls you, you're kind of a little bit more sensitive to the issues. So I do like that. The other thing would be opposed to, I don't like the idea of returning. I like the city manager form of government. I think it's been around since '53 or so, give or take a year. I like the city manager form of government. I don't want to go back to a strong mayoral form of government. I wouldn't support that. And I just think, and when I say city organization, yeah, there is a city manager, he's the director of public safety, and that kind of responsibility gives the city manager the authority to kind of look at and direct all the other departments within the city. But the mayoral form of government, and consider this, we're in 2-year cycles. We're not elected 4 years. It used to be 4 years. We're in 2-year cycles now. And a mayor is a mayor for 2 years. And if someone's running the city as a strong mayor form of government, they've got 2 years, and that could be changed out. At least with the city manager, they can at least go over multiple years. And that's very important to get experience. You learn something new every day. And the longer someone's, you know, in city government, city manager, whatever, they're going to learn more about the city and how the city operates. So I think for long-term stability, I think the city manager form of government works a lot better. And in the mayoral form of government, you know, I like it. City manager, nonpartisan. I like it. I think it works well. I wouldn't propose changing it.
What do you think Newport's greatest strength is, and how do you utilize it as a council?
The biggest strength is its size. It's small. It's a city, but it's small and it's manageable. And the other thing is, I keep people telling, you know, it's set up in colonial times. It really meant to be negotiated on foot, or maybe a horse or a buggy, whatever they had back then. But we have sidewalks, and you know, it's like, again, it's everybody. Most everybody seems to know everybody. It's a good tight community. I think that's an advantage. So I think we should capitalize on that. Again, let's not get crazy. Let's not have a big, you know, city staff shouldn't be too crazy big. It should be small and manageable. I like the idea that I can walk around the city. I can get to everything within a mile of my house. Whatever it may be, I can get to it within a mile. I can get to it on foot. I can walk a mile and, you know, moderate 20 minutes. It's not even going to take me 20 minutes to get a mile. So I think that's one of its, the big advantages. It's small, it's manageable, and it's negotiated on foot, on a bike, or whatever. Traffic is a problem. We have lots of visitors, so you know, we've got to deal with that as well. But its size, I think, is one of the big advantage of City Newport.
Hugo, is there any topic or anything we wanted to that you wanted to go over today that we didn't get to?
No, nothing in particular. I think that you know, when you get on the council, the topics will surface. Just keep in mind, it's a little bit of a philosophy, but I was on the school committee for lots of years, that in the political world, things happen very slowly. You know, there would be issues that come before the school committee. Oh, this is great. Let's get this done. And, you know, 6 months to a year, 2 years, sometimes even, you know, another election cycle, something gets done. It's just the way it is. So You know, topics will come up. We'll deal with them. One of the difficult things to do is to get how do you get the voters? How do you get the residents? How do you get their feelings? How do you get those into the city council? You know, that's a communication thing, but
and let's talk about communication while you brought that up. You do have a website and an email. So if people want to reach out to you leading up to the primary, general election, whatever it may be, I'm going to run the website on the bottom here. But yeah, why don't you go over your email as well as your website?
Yeah, I have a dedicated website for campaign. And of course, if I get elected, and if everybody supports me, I'll get elected. But anyway, I'll keep it up. I won't take it down. But it's my name, Hugo DeAscentis, NewportCityCouncil.com. It's a work in progress. I'm always going to be adding things to it, some information about the election, about the campaign, voter information as well. So check that out. I have a dedicated email. It's HDEASC. It's H as in Hugo and DEASC is in the first letters of my last name at gmail.com. And again, that's dedicated. And I have it for the campaign, and I will absolutely leave it up for if I'm elected. Obviously, I'm going to leave it up, and that'll be a nice roof of communication. Not opposed to having meetings with neighborhood groups, but the idea is to get out and somehow get in contact with the residents and try to figure out, you know, their thoughts and what they're interested in. And that's two of the things I can do. I've got a dedicated website and a dedicated email.
And if neighbors are talking to one another, obviously they can't share or remember everything in this 30-minute video. You know, give me, you know, what you want people to know about you, what people can spread, the elevator speech, or what differentiates you from the other two people running. You know, why should people be voting for you? What should people know about you?
Lifelong Newport resident, and I've lived here all my life. I've got a real passion for the city of Newport. I want to see the city of Newport thrive. I want to see the residents of the city of Newport thrive. I want to see Newport remain affordable. And it needs to be a nice place to live. You know, we have a lot of parks. There's one thing I was thinking about. Newport has a lot of parks. And if you're in Newport and you just want to get out, and just enjoy the outdoors, there's a lot of parks. I mean, there's dozens of them around the city of Newport. So we want a nice environment. Traffic needs to be controlled. It's always going to be an issue in the city of Newport. We need to do the best we can in controlling traffic so that when you need to go someplace, whether you're on foot or on a bike or in a car, you can get there without getting, you know, stopped up in traffic. But just, I've got a strong passion for the city of Newport. It's where I live, and it just needs to be a nice, livable, affordable place for our residents.
All right, Hugo. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. Early voting started last Wednesday. It goes through September 9th, and then the primary is on September 10th. We wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Hugo, we appreciate it very much. If you missed any portion of this conversation, want to watch it again, want to share it, all available on whatsupnoop.com. And we'll have a dedicated story on this interview up in just a short while. And I will run Hugo's website one more time on the bottom in case you missed it. And we appreciate Hugo joining us. We'll keep our election coverage going on here on whatsupnoop.com in the coming days, weeks, and months. Schedule of interviews are all available on whatsupnoop.com. Thanks for watching.